It's a real honor to be here today with two stars, two leaders of finance and operations, and that's with Goran and Hunter. So welcome. Thanks for joining us for this discussion on scaling finance and payables automation.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. Well, the two of you really work for some innovative companies with innovative business models. So let's kick things off with Hunter. Tell us a little bit about GoDigital Media and your role there.
Yeah, so we're an incubator of different media companies. So we started off as a music distribution company, but moved into film, television, and so we've run the gambit on the media and entertainment sector there. Right now, our big growth is coming out of music and the boom. You guys, Spotify IPO'd, Deezer's doing really well. Apple Music is growing and booming. So that space is ripe for a lot of growth. And so we do a lot of music distribution, IP acquisition. So we, clients we're working with like Janet Jackson on her latest album, T.I.'s catalog, and then a lot of Latin music. So Bad Bunny, Ozuna, those type of artists. So it's a really fun culture to being in music and media entertainment. But yeah, we're here and happy to be a part of this panel. So thanks for inviting me.
We're happy to have you too. Goran, tell us a little bit about StackCommerce and your role there.
Yeah, absolutely. StackCommerce is a Venice-based startup. We're just down the road, actually. We're 7 years old, and we are basically a commerce or native commerce platform. So we work with publishers and with vendors who want to sell products. So we sit right in between. So we basically help run e-commerce shops for publishers like CNN. And we help smaller vendors get their products out in front of eyeballs and to help them with distribution and selling their goods. And at the end of the day, we charge a revenue share from both sides, but we basically provide a significant amount of payouts for both parties, both for the vendors who are up and coming and for the publishers who want to augment their monetization.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about the business model at Stack. So kind of take us through an example of how you guys derive revenue and then share that revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe the easiest example to walk through is, let's say you like technology, and that's where we started in the technology vertical. So if you go to a technology site, you may read some interesting content about whatever it is you like, and within those articles, you may find some other interesting links to product descriptions. So what's happened there is that our writers have written very compelling content around these products. And as you click on it, you may find the product quite interesting to the point where you want to buy it. And you end up transacting in a shop that looks like it is, for example, Engadget's shop. But you go through the process, you buy your product, it gets shipped to you, and you think that you actually did all of this on Engadget within their shop. That's true, but we actually powered the whole experience. So we were the merchant of record, we created the content, and we sourced the products as well. We don't necessarily own the products, we don't hold the inventory, but we work with a network of thousands of vendors to come up with really cool products. So that's just one example for how it works in the tech vertical. More recently, we expanded into women's last year. So we acquired a company. And now we do TV shows as well. There's a TV show called The Real, so we run the shop for them as well. So it's an interesting space, and we're providing a lot of value both to publishers who today are struggling with monetization, as well as to vendors. And we're actually going to jointly put out a press release soon that we've passed the point of paying $100 million in aggregate payouts to our partners. So we're very proud of that accomplishment, and we're happy to be here and share some of our experiences.
That's awesome. Hunter, you mentioned you guys incubate some companies. So essentially, I think you have about 4 entities that are unique that kind of roll up to the GoDigital Media Group.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more detail about the revenue, maybe some of the bigger business drivers of your business and how the money is flowing?
On the Sing Music Group side, that's our Latin music label. And so that it's finding artists and helping help make master sound recordings and distribute those to digital and physical destinations. And then we have AdShare, which is a YouTube optimization play. So we were actually the first third-party non-major label that went and helped identify on YouTube illicit uses of media rights and helped actually set up that process for doing claims and handling conflicts of user-generated content with the media rights. So that was a big play for us. And then we have Content Bridge, which is a film and television, but also has music distribution, really a technology platform. We sold, to Disney that technology, and they used it for the backbone of their digital distribution for their film and television content as well. And then the last one is we have Vita Primo, which is a Latin music publisher. So we do over-the-top music video streaming, like on Roku and Apple TV and things like that. But also we've recently moved into TV, and so we're trying to make ourselves into the Latin MTV, and so in Latin American countries we're on cable television doing music video shows or behind the scenes footage, or we have one like La Barberia where artists come in and just talk about whatever they want to while they're getting a shave. So it's a fun company. We do a lot of different things, work with a lot of different creative artists. So it's a fun place to be.
All right. Well, being in that environment, what's your philosophy as a finance leader for your team, and kind of the goals you have to drive Go Media, drive it ahead?
Yeah. So our team, we're pretty ingrained in the business. So for example, product development reports and rolls into me, because a lot of what we're doing is so based on numbers and tracking, revenue and earnings. So it's very accounting heavy. So making sure the technology end to end makes sense and is integrated and all the pieces are working together fluidly is very important. So I'd say finance is a very emphasized department in our company. Besides all the general bookkeeping and accounting ops, finance is very important too, because we're doing acquisitions. So we'll go out and an artist wants to sell us their catalog or wants to do a new record, and they're looking to leverage their catalog as collateral. And so we have to go and help price the deals and raise the capital from equity or debt investors and really make those deals happen. So finance is a critical piece of our growth. A lot of it's going to be inorganic through acquisitions and bringing on new artists. So it's finance is critical for sure.
Goran, what's your philosophy leading finance with StackCommerce and kind of the goals you have there?
Yeah, I mean, at the core of our operation or business model really are payouts. So that's a huge part of what we do. We are a very lean company on the finance and accounting side. It's myself doing all things finance, and then a very talented controller, Deborah, who can't be here today. And she handles everything accounting. So it's really the two of us who run point on everything. And I think for us, we're trying to support our management team and our CEO in all the growth aspects that he wants to undertake. So for us, it's all about trying to automate as much as possible and really get that leverage to do a little bit more strategic work. So it's definitely a challenge, but our philosophy is to just keep supporting the team and really provide that insight that we haven't necessarily been able to do as much recently as we wanted to, as we've been scaling. So we're trying to do that to the best of our abilities.
Well, sticking with you, Goran, then let's talk about some of the implications of all those payments you're making.
Right.
And I realized, Goran, you came in when StackCommerce had already addressed some of the challenges, but you have some anecdotes from the founder. And what were the implications of your business when making payments was becoming so challenging?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to put in perspective, so at the end of each month, or the beginning really of the next month, we pay between 700 and 1,000 vendors based on the revenue generated for the prior month. And it's a really complicated process because each vendor gets paid a different amount depending on what rev share structure they're on. Each publisher gets paid a different amount as well. So it's a pretty cumbersome process. So in the past, before we had integrated with you guys, we used a different vendor, and the whole payment process or the payout process, as we call it, took a good 7 days. And there were a couple of issues with the process at the time. There were a few errors that happened where the same payment went out twice. So it was very challenging to claw that back and go through that. From a vendor experience perspective, it was not a good experience. And from a cost perspective, Stack ate a lot more of the cost than we do now, because we had a lot of vendors who wanted to get checks cut, or they wanted to get wires done, and it was on Stack to issue that on a one-off basis. So both from like an error mitigation perspective, bandwidth perspective, it's probably saved at least one full headcount having integrated with you guys. So now it's gone from being a week-long process to at most 3 days. We're usually done like early afternoon on the second day, which means that we freed up a lot of the time that we can then use for other things. And errors, we hardly have them at all, and it's overall a much better experience. And from the vendor's perspective, they can choose how they want to get paid when they sign up, and it's very streamlined. So overall, it's been, according to my CEO, one of the best implementations we've had, both from a time savings perspective and also from a cost savings perspective.
That's great, thank you. Hunter, what was happening at GoDigital where all of a sudden the payments operation became something that was hindering you guys?
We had a different AP provider when I rejoined the company 1.5 years ago. And the big crux is when I came in, everyone said, you need to fix this. We're a Latin label, so we have a lot of artists in Puerto Rico, and the payment provider we were using turned off that territory. You couldn't pay anyone in Puerto Rico with a Puerto Rican bank account. And so we were like frantically looking for a fix. In the meantime, I came on, I had to build up my team. So at the time I was doing a lot of the payment processing myself. And I'm sitting there, sending out wires, typing in bank account, routing numbers. I'm just like, man, this has got to change. We've got to do something else. And so we went out to the market and we looked, and we actually ended up going with a different vendor than Tipalti. We got multiple bids and went with a different vendor. And we failed on that implementation. We got to the point where I'm looking at the requirements. I'm like, so you're telling me I have to train my AP clerk, who's not very tech savvy, how to make an XML file and do what with it? And I'm like, it's not going to happen. And I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to cut my losses. We're not moving forward. And then we just kind of sat on it for a bit and came back with Tipalti and learned that they had an iframe that we could white label plug into our site, which is huge. Because what our process used to be is when an artist signed up with us, they get this ACH form, they'd fill it out and send it back to us, and that was their bank account information on record, and we'd have to put that in our various systems, the bank account, our online portal, et cetera. If their bank account changed, the payment bounced, and we have fees now, we have to deal with that. We had one time where these are, urban artists. We had a guy who was locked up for a bit and wanted to change his bank account information to his girlfriend's, and then after he got out, we accidentally, we sent the payment to the same bank account he had on file with. He's like, hey, why are you still paying my girlfriend? I'm like, guys, I can't handle this. You need to manage this yourself. So Tipalti, we have our online portal for artists. They log in. They can put in their bank information. They fill out an electronic W-9, and whenever they want to change it, they can just go and do it themselves. And I don't have to think about it anymore. And that has really saved us from that perspective. But similar to Goran here, we're processing hundreds of payments to artists and labels every period, and before that was it was very difficult to go in and do all those manual payments to those international territories where this vendor couldn't handle prior. But now with Tipalti, I'm saving, relative to where we were before we implemented, I'm saving probably 20 days of productivity a year, and that process that took me days to do. I have my team that they get the royalty payment file, we upload it to Tipalti, we review it, make sure everything foots, and we release the payments. It's literally minutes of my time now. So it has really saved me and allowed me to spend my time on things that actually matter.
Goran, you guys have now today a more efficient process too, but there's a lot of calculations that you have to do, and so it's not just click a button and you're done. But describe kind of the workflow you have now today with the payouts that you guys do.
Yeah, there are a lot of manual steps. So our business model is complicated, but what happens is on the first day of the month, we cut the ledger and we look at all the different revenue shares that are going to be paid out. And we got to make adjustments because we claw back certain amounts of money if we work with a publisher and we put paid spend behind them on Facebook, for example. So we got to claw that back. If there's products that have been returned, we gotta do adjustments for that. So there's a handful of different kinds of adjustments we can do. So we work through that in the first day or so. And what we do then to avoid holding up all the payments is we stage our payouts. So we work in offline Excel files through these different stages. And then when we're ready to do the first wave of payout, we hit about 70% of all our vendors. That way we avoid holding it up for 2-3 days. And then we work through the more complicated cases in wave number 2 and wave number 3, et cetera. So it is rather cumbersome, but yet it's as streamlined as it can be given Stack's business model. When it comes to the actual payout process, once we're done with all adjustments, and much to what you mentioned, once everything foots, I just go in and I basically sign off on everything and issue the mass payout. That process is super simple. For us, it's the majority of the work is getting through all the different adjustments, and then uploading the file and approving it is a mere formality, which is great.
Great. Hunter, you guys have royalty payments that kind of are similar to Goran in the mass payout sort of process, but you guys also have accounts payable operations where you're getting invoices sent to you, and then you have to, kind of process that and send out payments as well internationally. So describe a little bit about how efficient that's become for you now in your new workflow.
Luckily, we had Tipalti in place before we signed Jen Jackson, but we're doing this new project with her, and she travels a lot. She does a lot of shows, and we're picking up the tab on a lot of that. And so it's been very streamlined. The vendors, they get our email address, they send the information there, their tax form, and they have to do that electronically in Tipalti. But anyway, we said they send the invoice and it comes in, and Tipalti sucks it in, does OCR on that, and if it's a vendor we've paid before, they recognize the email address and associate with that client account, pull in the GL and all that automatically, populate the invoice line items. Some of these lawyer bills we'll get, for instance, are like, every 5-minute increments they're billing, and so it could be pages and pages of line items, and it sucks it all in and does the math for us. So it's been really great from that perspective. And then we go through the regular approval workflows in the system, which has been great, and release the payment. I don't think we could have taken on her as a client if we didn't have Tipalti. It would have been very, very cumbersome, especially paying international payees. With having that electronic W-8 process that people can go and fill it out themselves, and it automatically populates with the withholding amounts based on tax treaties and all of this. That really makes it to where we can operate as a global entity versus just dying under the pressure of all the manual steps that would have had to be there had Tipalti not been in place.
Speaking of onboarding, let's continue that. Goran, tell us how the importance of your vendors, your publishers to your model, and then as you grow, you're bringing on more and more of these folks. How's the onboarding experience been for you and getting them tax compliant and all of that?
Yeah, so for our business model, it's very important to both grow our publisher network on this side and also our vendor network on this side. So we have compelling products to offer on these different publishers. So from like an onboarding perspective, it's very streamlined, much to what you mentioned. Someone can join, or we have, let's say, a vendor contacting Stack. We create an account for them, and then they log in and they fill out all their information, the ACH, how they want to get paid, the tax information. And once they're done with that, they're up and running. So it's super simple. We hardly ever get any feedback of the process being cumbersome. It's really smooth. And then we're off and running, really. So it works well.
Yeah, great. Going global, that's kind of a big topic today. The world's getting smaller, but yet it's seemingly getting more complex to operate. Hunter, let's start with you. Tell us about your experience, kind of running finance for a global business, and also how you develop like a reputation and gain loyalty in an international business setting.
Yeah, so we are a global organization. We're boots on the ground in 16 countries and have 5 or 6 major hubs where we have over a dozen employees each. So it's global is big for us. My finance team is with the exception of one person, all in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So we have quite a few chartered accountants and CFA over there that run the finance. So being able to have something that's online, not on premise, has been big for us. But to your point of having a reputation, if you're in this space where people are using you to distribute their IP or monetize their IP, and you can't pay them, you immediately lose credibility. So being able to have a smooth, defined process is critical, and having those payments hit, and being able to see transparent, bill processing or payment status, it's critical to have that. A lot of these times, being international, you as a finance person might not ever meet some of these customers or clients, but having those positive interactions, minimizing errors, is key. I feel like being successful in finance, it's a lot like sports, where the team that makes the least errors comes out ahead. And that's the same here, where getting paid, it's like the mail. You don't complain until the mail doesn't start showing up, and then it's a big problem. And it's very easy to upset a customer that way. So it's been key to help streamline this.
Goran, you guys describe a little bit about who you're paying and kind of the international element of that, and how you might think about going more global.
Yeah, for sure. So today we are roughly split 70-30 domestic and international. We have a lot of thoughts of what we can do globally. I think from an expansion perspective, it makes a lot of sense. The challenge we're having is we also have a lot of opportunities to grow domestically, whether it's going after new verticals, like I mentioned, women and TV, which we've done in the last 12 months. So we are already international, but I think we're holding off on that for a little bit, but it's something that we're definitely considering in the next couple of years to really ramp that up. But yeah, it's a big opportunity. And what was the other part?
Well, I guess too, touching on who you are paying, and then these folks that are international, how do you kind of get them to really enjoy being a partner of you guys, even though you have a lot of distance between you?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think just going back a couple of years, before the Stack business model was really known by the publishers, it was just going to the publishers first. It was a harder sell because no one really knew what we did and how this native commerce experience worked. Now it's a different type of conversation that we have because we are partners with CNN, with AOL, with a lot of big publishers. So we're talking earlier about reputation. It's much easier now when we go to any kind of potential publisher to talk about what we do because we are reputable. We're working with some of the biggest brands. And when it comes to the payment process, it usually never fails. So much like you mentioned, you only hear about it when it doesn't work well. And then from our international vendors, there's a lot of hesitation many times around like, how do I get paid? How does this work? It's a little bit of a leap of faith, especially because these vendors are oftentimes very small. Literally, it could be a small vendor creating, say, an iPhone case, somewhere, overseas. So they want to understand how they get paid, and I think we provide them a lot of comfort through the sign-up process. It's very streamlined. It's very, very straightforward. So I think by the time we're up and running and they're signed on and we start selling our products, they get comfortable really quickly. And on top of that, we have a partner portal where from day one you can log on as a vendor and you can see how much revenue you're generating each day. You can audit it. So it's very transparent as well. So overall, I think it's a good experience for our vendors working with StackCommerce.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about why make these big changes in your operations and invest in technology. It's to get some benefit and return on that investment. So Hunter, your thoughts on really what have been some of the bigger gains that you've gotten from automating payables and being kind of a global payout process that's automated?
Whenever you're looking to implement technology, you do have to look at the ROI. Does this make sense? To Palti, it was really no-brainer. When you're taking up a lot of my time, that gets expensive quickly. If you're using up our executive management at any level, it gets expensive. So it was easy to make that adjustment. And I mean, but it's not. It was beyond me. It was a constant battle before, where our A&R reps, the sales guys, text me. I wake up to texts from people on the East Coast like, hey, so-and-so didn't get paid. Hey, can you check the status of this? And it was every day. It was like a chore. I had to wake up, I had emails, and then I had texts from people wanting to know the status of payments. So that was huge, getting that. Like I can't even remember the last time I actually got a text message about someone asking about a payment status. It's all in the system. They can all see it. So it's been a lot better there. But yeah, I mean, with anything you're doing manual, when you're thinking about implementing technology, you're doing a system implementation. You go through your user acceptance testing and your regression testing. You make sure everything's working. And as long as the variables that you're inputting in the system and the output you're expecting to get out doesn't change, you can rely on that to keep operating in perpetuity and work. When you have manual processes, and I'm big about minimizing as many manual touch points as you can have, because whenever anyone does anything manual, even me, the CEO, anyone, there's room to mess up. You could be doing something that you do every week, and then someone calls you and distracts you, and then you come back and you lost your place and you mess something up. And so when you have a lot of manual processes, unless someone's reviewing that every step of the way, something can fall out, and then you have errors, and then your clients get upset and like, why doesn't this foot? Why did you recoup royalties you shouldn't have? And so it's critical for us to really tie our systems together. So I've done a lot of system implementations just in the last year and a half. We're doing a business intelligence tool right now that's automating a lot of calculations, and we're looking to tie that into Tipalti, and you guys can do IPN notifications that when a payment has gone out and it's confirmed, you can kick off notifications to other systems. So really tying everything together and taking the manual human touch out of our processes is what we're driving towards. And Tipalti solved a huge issue we had within finance that caused pain throughout the organization.
Goran, for you, you came on and they Tipalti was actually running.
Right.
But how has that impacted the business as you guys have moved forward, and just in your role as well? What are some of the benefits you've
Yeah, it's had a big impact. As I mentioned before, the payouts process would take a good week. Now it's down to at most 3 days. So just from a bandwidth perspective, it's freed up a tremendous amount, probably a whole head count. But what it's allowed us to do too is, as our business has evolved, we have more and more one-offs. So we work with bigger publishers like the CNNs of the world. There's usually some slight differences in how we do the payouts. So that means that we got to dedicate some more thoughtful resources to that. Now, being streamlined with Tipalti, that allows us to do that. But as we also think of scaling going forward, whether we pay out 700 vendors or 1,500 vendors in a month, it doesn't really change in the amount of time it takes for us to do our work. Yeah, checking the adjustments may take a little bit more time, but overall, not significantly. So I think as we scale our operation, we have the infrastructure in place, and for us, that's huge. Not just because we're looking to go and grow quickly, but it's also peace of mind, especially when we're running so lean, because we know that we're not going to have these downtimes where we have to put everything on hold and start digging into these issues. So for us, it's been huge. And also, it's much less error-prone to our prior system, and cost-wise, it's been cheaper as well. So it's been benefits all the way through.
Great. Now, for folks here in the room that might be looking to take on a payables automation project or change how their AP works today to make it better, what advice would you give folks out there in terms of any fears that you could alleviate, or why should they make this a priority? You've hit on a lot of great points of this, but maybe lessons learned too of as you've gone through and implemented a system like this. Hunter, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I've done quite a few system implementations over my career. Before I was with this company, I was at Deloitte doing consulting, and I've done implementations at whether it's ERPs or point solutions for revenue recognition. A lot of the major media companies from Google, Microsoft, Spotify, across the board, and they have the same big problems that we do as small businesses. It's just the numbers have a couple more zeros after them, and when you're looking at a successful implementation, it really, a lot of it's on the software provider. Like I said, we had that failed implementation with a different AP provider just because I knew that the solution itself and the way we were going to operate it was just not going to work for us. that vendor actually had it took 3 months for them to process our know your client, or know your customer, banking regulatory compliance item. And so we were just kind of sitting, waiting, having painful AP processes while they're getting that approval to even take us on as a client. With Tipalti, it was roughly 4 weeks from, yeah, let's do this, I signed the contract, to we were up paying people. It was really quick, the implementation. Now, we were highly motivated to get it done. But we had a lot of information readily available to I think help them move it along. Not to say everyone I think could get on Tipalti in a month, but it was really smooth, and we had dedicated team. There were escalation points. We got our answers addressed quickly, and that is one thing I'll say that Tipalti really separates themselves and differentiates themselves from the other competition in the marketplace. I've been with 3 vendors now in just the last year and a half. One of them, you couldn't talk to a human if you tried. We had a customer who somehow, I don't know if it was an inside job or what, but they got hacked, and they got a $50,000 royalty payment went to the wrong bank account. It was some Green Dot Corp debit card that someone had set up, and it was just gone. And so it took us 2 months to even get them to answer us. I had to escalate via their controller because I knew some partner who knew them or whatever, and finally got someone to talk to us about the issue, and they were able to claw back like $25,000, which was like, whoa, even 3 months after, why is it still in the card? But anyway, it was a pain. You couldn't talk to people. You get sent to the forum all the time to post questions, and hopefully someone replies with something meaningful. With Tipalti, I have a great client manager, so Michael Garcia. He follows up with me regularly on issues. There was one thing where I think something was set up wrong, and we were getting billed for something we shouldn't have. And I called Michael and said, hey, I just want to check on this, what's going on here? And he looked into it, and within 24 hours, it was fixed, and we had a refund, and it was just taken care of. He did a really great job. And people make mistakes, but it's the way you handle those mistakes and the way you help your customers work through them that really sets you apart. And Tipalti, I got to hand to you guys. You guys have a great customer service experience.
Great, thanks. That's good to hear. And Goran, for you, advice for folks out joining us today on taking on a project like this?
Yeah, I want to start right where you left off. We've had a great experience as well from a customer service perspective. We had a few questions in the last couple of weeks or months, and you guys turn around really quickly. So that's really valuable from a finance and accounting perspective, because when you have people on the other end who want to get paid and they're asking why they're not getting paid, time is of the essence. So that's been a huge part for us. I feel like you guys are more than just a payment provider. It's more of a partner. So that's been great. As far as implementation, obviously I didn't go through that with Stack, but I can speak about it from the perspective of using the interface and the system. For us, it's very simple, it's streamlined, and it's very easy to use. And really, I don't have as much experience as you do with implementations of different systems, but I don't see a reason why we would ever change. It's working really well, and it's super easy to use, and it's very easy for our vendors to sign up. And for us, when our vendors are happy, we are generally pretty happy as well. So it's worked out well.